And so when I mentioned that to even our supervisors, I said, "Sure, this is the first time John's done this. Like he has no clue what he's doing." Somehow you're managing it, which again is, and my hat's off to you.
We could need more than 500,000 additional construction workers on average just to build all the homes that are going to be needed.
Introducing the PeopleBuilt Podcast with John Wiehler. Because the city we've built is nothing without the stories of the people who built it.
Thank you very much for clicking on the About Us link on the website here. The best way that we thought to be able to tell the story of Wiehler over the last 50 years was to do it in kind of an interview format, starting with Marty Wiehler in the early 1970s through to what Marty and John and everyone at the Wiehler team does up to 2024. I hope you enjoy this. So, what year did you start plumbing?
I started plumbing in 1971. It was the day after I got out of high school, and on a Friday, and I started working on the Monday. My cousin got me a job at the Foothills Hospital, and that's where I started. It was quite interesting because I was painting beams in the furnace room, and I figured for $1.70 an hour, I'll do this forever. Things have changed.
At $1.70 an hour, were you like that was a first year apprentice rate?
That's correct.
Was that minimum wage?
That was half of a journeyman's wage at that time. I do not know what minimum wage was.
Oh, interesting. And so, how long were you an apprentice for before you decided to become a journeyman and then start Wiehler?
Well, I went through the whole 4-year apprenticeship. I started off with the big commercial company, then went to a smaller commercial company. We worked at the Saddle Dome and the fish hatchery. And then I started working for Anderson Plumbing in Calgary. We did light commercial work, and I got promoted into the service department. So I did service work for just about 2 or 3 years with them. And that made me a better plumber, I believe, because I got to know how to fix things after they screwed up.
Are there some memories, right? So from your apprenticeship and journeyman working at Anderson, what are some of the kind of the highlights from that time that you still look back? That's more than 50 years ago now.
Yeah.
What's a highlight or what's something that still sticks in your memory from 50 years ago?
One memory is we worked at the Exshaw cement plant with one of the owners of Anderson. We did hikes and stuff like that and saw a wooden water main still in use, which is totally amazing to me. Then just even at the fish hatchery, and we worked there, we hauled the gravel. We were in the gravel crew, and we did gravel, I think, for 3 months in a row to have filters for all the fish in the hatchery, which is kind of special.
Did you find it strange that one of the owners of Anderson Plumbing would go on a hike with one of their staff?
No, not at all. We drove out together, both of us. We took his truck, and we drove out together and drove back together every day. And they were paying us subsistence, which was a lot of money at that time. I think we're getting close to $2,000 a month. Tax-free money. Because as if we're staying out of camp.
And that would have been in 1976 or somewhere around there, or when?
Probably 74, 75.
Wow. To what level did working with one of the owners have on your desire to want to start your own company? What would you guys talk about for an hour and a bit driving to and from Exshaw? How much of that impacted your desire to start Wiehler?
None. So my desire to start Wiehler was through another friend who was a house builder. He just turned around and said, "Marty, you should do my plumbing." And I said, "Okay." And I did.
Yeah.
So he got me started on it, and he didn't build that much initially. I didn't have any other work, so I helped him frame the house at the beginning, and at that time I wasn't making very much money doing that. I went totally on my own at that point in time and actually physically look for work.
What did your family think? What did Oma and Opa say, or your brother or sister, right? When you became a plumber for the first time, and then when you decided to start Wiehler Mechanical and take the Wiehler family name and put that on a business?
I never really had any comments from them. That's probably all good luck, and probably I hope you do well. But there's no other encouragement. I had a job across the alley from my mom and dad's house. It was one of my first jobs that I did. And my mom was very supportive, of course. My dad was as well. And that's I didn't really get any more support from them. Trying to find work was the most important.
How much of OPA being a carpenter either led for your desire to want to be a tradesperson, or like what impact did OPA being a carpenter and working in that environment have on you to pursue the trades?
None at all. I was never able to go to job sites with my dad, unlike you, who you came around all the job sites, which is a better introduction into any kind of field of work. So I just decided I wanted to make money. I wanted to make some money so I could buy a car. Because I was having good enough marks to get into university, but I figured another 4 more years without a vehicle. I didn't want that, so I decided to become a tradesman.
I buy a car.
So I could buy a car.
Do you remember what car you wanted to buy?
I bought a Volkswagen first. That lasted about 2 months because I didn't like it. I was with my dad's help, and he never helped me buy another vehicle. So then I started making money. I didn't want to become an electrician because my other cousin was an electrician. I didn't want to get into the shooting contest about that. So I decided, well, then I'll become a plumber. It's just that kind of a move, which is kind of interesting.
And then so as an apprentice, so you talked to me, maybe some of the highlights was working at the fish hatchery, working in Exshaw, like painting beams at at Foothills Hospital. And those are some pretty, like, very memorable places to work. Right? If you think of like the number of people who drive to and from Exshaw, like, do you still think about that experience when you drive past the cement plant?
Yes, I think about it every time.
What do you think about when you see it?
It's changed a lot since I was there. But I think I'm just in awe. It was kind of neat because we did go back. There's a big dam in behind. At cement plant, you use a lot of water. There's a big dam in behind. And that's where we walked to, actually.
Are you proud of that work still? Like, do you look back at that as like I accomplished something there, or is there any attachment to there?
I'm just proud that I worked there. Every time I worked at the grandstand, and every time I go there, I say, I worked here. And when we walk through, you kind of look up and look around, and it's kind of neat.
What are some of the other places that maybe people would know about where you worked at, and when you walk through there, you go, yeah, I worked here?
I did some work at the Holy Cross Hospital. Did some work at SAIT in the tunnels. There's a lot of tunnels at SAIT where you can virtually connect all the buildings. So I worked in there. I still remember when you had a safety conscious worker on his hard hat and he was missing fingers, which happens in the pipe fitting industry.
Oh, interesting. Were you ever a part of any like significant, like, were you ever around when someone got significantly injured?
No. So I was injured myself. I had a ditch that caved in on my back once. I was off work for just about 2 months.
How did that experience of a trench caving in on you and hurting your back for 2 months, did that have any impact on how you've approached like either working in the industry or setting guys out in the field, working with excavators? Like, was that impactful in any way?
I can say yes, but in reality, it was no. Because I did a lot of stupid things after that, where I should not have gone into some trenches. But I thought that it was costing me my job if I didn't go. And I was wrong. And at that time, my boss just said, Artie, you could have said no. You should have said no. Or the person I was working for is Tom Morrow.
Yeah.
What he said, no, you should never gone in there. He said, I don't care if it takes another week to do that. You should never go in there if it's not safe.
Do you think that's that feeling, and so that would have been when you were the company owner, working in the ditch, right? Feeling that you would be fired if you didn't go in the ditch.
Correct.
Did you see that getting better? Like over 30 years, did you feel that was less likely to happen? Right? Like to get fired, like did the feeling go away?
Yes, totally. Because there's other ones when they see a ditch totally straight cut, at that point in time, I just refused. And the guy said, Marty, I'll lay in this ditch while you work. And I said, I don't really care. Next day, it was cut back. So it gave me confidence to stand up to the excavators.
And then so 1979, your buddy's running a home building company. He's like, Marty, you should do my plumbing. And you're like, yeah, I'll do it. That's the only work you had and you weren't super busy. So then your focus goes into getting more work. How long did it take for you to get work and be stable? And what was your first big win as a client?
My sister's girlfriend's husband and his brother had a building company called Morrow Brothers. And somehow I got to meet them and I gave them a quote. And that started a relationship which lasted just about 30 years with Tom and Peter Morrow. And that, I'm quite thankful for my sister for that.
Well, what did that mean to have a relationship from like as the plumbing contractor to the Morrow brothers, Tom Morrow, Peter Morrow, and then Albie Holmes for basically 30 some years? What was the impact on for you and for our family?
Well, for our family, it's huge. Like to have steady work and like having a relationship with them for that long amount of time. Financial security with all the work and stuff, and allowed me to, to buy a warehouse and do things.
So like how many recessions and like boom bust cycles do you think you were a part of?
Oh, I figure probably 4 or 5 of them. The first one was 1982 with the National Energy Program with Pierre Trudeau, and that just put a lot of hurt into a lot of Albertans at that time when the house values dropped by close to half. The mortgages that people they had mortgages were bigger than the value of their home. At that time, I was building a house at the time for me and my wife. And at that time, the value of our house dropped close to half within about a year, which is extremely difficult. And people are giving back their houses to the bank or just living in there till they got taken away. That was the worst recession I think ever.
And I want to come back to that too, but just to piggyback on like the wages. So just so I understand, wages went from about $20 an hour in, let's say 1982. The National Energy Program rolls out. The recession comes towards Alberta. Housing prices drop about 50%. Interest rates go up, and journeyman plumbers go from $20 an hour to about $11.40 an hour.
And then lower.
And lower.
There was no work. Like a lot of plumbers buggered off back to Ontario,
Yeah.
which was booming at the time.
Yeah. How did that impact our family? So I wouldn't have been born just yet, or I might have been just. Was I born then?
No.
No.
Then back, I just worked harder.
Yeah.
I just worked harder and longer hours to make everything work. And at that time, I wanted to pay off the mortgage in the house as fast as possible, to the point where if I had to pump gas for a living, I could still create a living for a family. That was my major goal.
What's really cool is that, like, part of the story of Wiehler is you experienced growth in the business while everybody else was having a difficult time getting a job. What was that? Like, what caused that?
I believe I did good quality work, and I was able to make relationships work. That was fortunate.
Did you work a lot of weekends?
I worked every Saturday, for sure, and every now and then I try to squeeze in a Sunday. Especially those are still the harder years, and to get out of recession takes a lot of time.
Were you working 8 hours a day, or were you working more than 8 hours a day?
Well, I'd probably work an average 12 hours a day. Kind of just go home and have supper and go to bed, and next morning start the whole thing again.
To that point too, like, how involved were you as a parent, right? During those early years, how much were you able to be a dad during that time? And how much was like focused on the business and Wiehler?
I thought when you're in school, I tried to make it everywhere. If you had an event, I tried to make it to every event that you had. I'd break away, and if I had to go back to work, I went back to work. But I tried to make every event that you did, right from when you were young to grade 12.
Because I know, like, from my memory, I think a lot of like the work ethic, like the focus on the client, that long-term value of the client being honorable. I feel like, where you would have picked that up from Tom and some of our clients. I definitely picked up from Tom, some of the clients in Albie and yourself, and then looking at it going like, with no judgment, that was the priority, that Wiehler provided stability for the family, and that was the focus, right? Work first, because that is what was providing the stability for our family. Is that your memory as well?
Definitely, because for me, I had to do the quote, I had to do the work, and I had to do the billing. I was responsible for all three things. I knew everything was happening with every job that we were doing. That's pretty important. And that's something, after you hire people, you can kind of delegate some of the issues away from there. I think I had close to 8 guys at one time, I did not have the ability to delegate like you have. And so I tried to do everything, and I couldn't do it. And I think I probably ran best with 6 people because I was too controlling and had my hands in everything, which was unfortunate.
I guess from the delegation standpoint, right? Like, what was probably one of the best hires that you ever made, or what had the most impact in Wiehler for yourself?
The best hire I ever did was hire a secretary to take care of all the paperwork that company produces. Initially, when this girl started, I had just a mound of paper on top of the desk, and it was only a week or so after that, all the paper got put away, and it was great, an empty desk.
Hiring Megan and the impact that had, well, like for yourself, to talk about that importance of delegation, the importance of organization, like having more structure in the office and documentation side, like, and then the value that provides back to our clients as well as like yourself or myself. And just like, what a light bulb moment, because you've spoken for years about like, that was the hire, and you would tell me, if I would have hired her earlier, I could have grown.
I had the opportunity to take on a lot more work, in that, but because I couldn't delegate that, I didn't have the infrastructure set up well enough to do more.
You retired fully 1 year and a bit ago now. It's July 1st, 2023.
About that.
And you surprised me because you actually stopped showing up to the shop and breakfast, and you stopped doing jobs, which I thought when you said you were going to retire, I was like, we'll see how that takes place. But then all of a sudden you just stopped showing up. How easy was it to manage me and the transition? Like what were some of the hiccups, or what were some of the frustration points in being at a family business and managing your son?
It was okay to a point when when it came time for you to take over. At that time we tried both being the boss, and that didn't work out very well. You can't have 2 bosses. And at that point in time, I think I decided that I was getting tired of some of the hassle of having a business. And I think I was just mentioned to you, I was going to go to work and you can be the boss.
What was that like to have me be your boss?
It was good. I still enjoyed working. And the work part of it, I always enjoyed the work part of business. I did not enjoy the business part of business, which is all part and parcel. You have to do both.
What was it like for you then to watch me make mistakes while I was the boss?
I tried to prepare you as best as I could. I tried to give you every mistake I made you were very aware of. I did that on purpose, even though it's not always fun to say what kind of mistakes you make. But you make mistakes, and you will continue making mistakes. That's just part of business.
I remember you talking about like wearing your mistakes very publicly with me and not concealing that. Like, were you doing that as a dad, or were you doing that as like a mentor?
It's done in both.
Yeah.
Yes. You're always going to be my son, regardless of anything. In order to prepare a person properly, every business has problems, and there are failures that people do or that happen. If you can prepare, and maybe you may not do the same mistakes, that'd be well worthwhile.
Like, and we're talking about like major financial mistakes, poor investments, flooded houses, even that concept that you had such an opportunity to take on work and you never did because you couldn't delegate. Like, did you ever feel ashamed? What were the feelings like when you were talking about your mistakes?
I never felt bad about that part at all, because we made it through it all, and as a business owner, you're going to keep on making mistakes. Being aware of them is half the battle. And no, I never felt bad about telling you about the mistakes. I wanted to tell you.
Are there like a couple memories or like highlights from the years between, let's say, 4 and 14? Those years I really remember working with you. And then my memory is that at 14, summer holidays, I started getting paid, but I also stopped working with you. I'd drive in with you in the morning. You'd basically put me with a journeyman, give them a $20 bill for my lunch. And then I'd see you at the end of the day, at some point, you'd pick me up. This was beyond the days of cell phones. So my memory is I would just wait until you got there. But so for that span, let's say between 4 and 14, what's your memory of what it was like to work with me?
It was great. You've never really been a morning person, and we'd listen to the radio and we'd make comments about whatever the radio was on. And usually we listen to talk radio in the mornings. I was in drive-in. That's the only time we'd really chat. Nothing really stands out as far because we did it all the time. Like we did the summer holidays, Christmas holidays, whatever holidays there were, you were with me. And then in the weekend, the Saturdays, you were with me, and so it became pretty well a standard thing. You'd help me, and you're a good helper.
So here's one. I spent all that time with you, and we're talking like 4, 8 years old, 9 years old. Like, James is 7. I'm trying to picture him coming to work with me. What did you think was going on in my head in that time?
Initially, I never figured that you were actually remembering anything we were doing. And in a way, I was pleasantly surprised when you were taking over. You did remember a lot of the stuff that we did when you did do service calls in houses and how we did things. I was pleasantly surprised.
When did you start recognizing that I actually did pick up things from that time?
I believe that's after you started taking over and you took on virtually all the responsibilities, because you make good proper decisions, and you started remembering what we did back in the day. That says, well, he was awake, or he was aware, which is great.
I can't imagine it would have been super easy to go from I'm the boss to recognizing that you can't have two bosses, and then to very humbly to go, well, I'll let John be my boss. And my memory is that you allowed me the space to make mistakes as a leader. One of the key memories I have of those early years was getting into an argument with you in the front of the shop, like day 4. And I don't remember what the argument was about, but I remember walking away, and I feel like you slammed the door between the shop and warehouse. I slammed the door at the back, right? I don't remember what we argued about. But then I remember that you called me about 15 minutes later, and you invited me for a beer at the Cat and the Fiddle. And at that time, I don't think I really recognized as much as I do now about the level of courage that takes to be humble for your child. And that was really impactful for me.
We did that a few times. So giving up control isn't, you're right, it isn't always easy, but it did work out. And whenever we did have those arguments, we always finished off probably having a beer somewhere. And I think we can still have arguments, and still, you can't take this business feelings personal all the time. And that's something you have to learn.
They're not bad memories, but it definitely, finding that balance between trying to run the business, to be a parent, to make sure I had a good apprenticeship, be home with the family. I do remember seeing a lot of those competing interests. It was never easy trying to run Wiehler and be a dad and be a husband and be a dad,
And mow the lawn.
and mow the lawn. And then so I've been running Wiehler now since 2010. In a couple of sentences, what does that mean to you?
It makes me very proud. My big dream for you back when you started, I says, I want you to do better than I did. That was my dream for you. And you've achieved that and so much more. I'm so proud. And even some of these hiccups that you've gone through, you've gotten over those hurdles. And that makes me so proud. Your ability to get work, and your ability to deal with people, and your ability to delegate. I'm very proud of what you have achieved, and I still wish you all the best.
And even talk about some of the relationships with the guys that you have beyond even just me. What is the growth of Wiehler meant to you, and what kind of feelings does that do for you?
I'm extremely proud of what you've achieved. Even yesterday, I went past the job site, and I talked to a plumber there, and he says, well, who are you? I said, I'm Marty Wiehler. We chatted for about half an hour. He's doing rough-ins. It was interesting. He said, for our work, they said, we want quality before speed. I'm very proud that's his attitude this guy had. That's what I've always talked about. I wanted quality before speed. So that's how you get good relationships with the builders that we work for. And the people, I think, are happier too when they can come out of a job and say, I did this.
And that value, because I think we talk about in most businesses, of course, is they'll tell you that the culture of the company represents the top of the organization, right? And then to see that your values from 45 years ago are actually represented today in somebody who like who has never met you and probably doesn't report to me. Like, and what I'll say is like how little I'm involved in the day to day and how much of Wiehler's ran, but people won't share our last name, but share our values. Like when you walk through the company, you walk through the warehouse, you see people and you talk to people, what is that like to see the care and attention, and what does that do for you?
Makes me very, very proud. At times, I wish they could do more. My expectations are more, and I believe they can do more.
Yeah, did you ever think that Wiehler would look like this?
Never, not my wildest dreams. So in the 14 years that you've done this, it's amazing the growth that you've done. And I think that's going to be very difficult for anybody else to do. You asked me a while ago, says, would you hire me to do what we did in the last 10 years? And the answer is no, because you've got no experience at anything. And so when I mentioned that to even our supervisors, I said, this is the first time John's done this. Like he has no clue what he's doing. Somehow you're managing it, which again is, and my hat's off to you.
Probably the mistake that resonates with me the most is when you spoke about that inability to delegate, or the unwillingness to delegate. And then also the courage to share your mistakes with me. Because I think out of all the things that I learned, it was that real connection between I'm not perfect, I make mistakes, and remember that daily, and delegate. Like the people do care. And then to be able to take that, like you were able to collect an invoice, read a statement, and pay it. You were able to generate a quote. But when you found somebody who that was their passion and they were good at it, the impact that had on the business. And it's been something that's been meaningful to me to go, well, where else does that exist? And I'm continually amazed at like taking bits of the business that I'm not good at. And there's so much that I'm just not good at. And then to be able to seek people out who have that passion to grow, the passion for themselves, the passion to be responsible, and then to carry that passion into Wiehler. And then to see the impact that they have, right? And, to go out and develop new relationships, to carry that legacy of like being highly honorable, finishing the job, right? Even when we no longer work for some clients, right? And we finish strong, even though the relationship is terminated for the time being. I think that's one impact from a legacy standpoint that I think so many managers and leaders, they forget that they're imperfect. And I look at the company today and I'm like, basically nothing's easier if I do it. There's somebody here who's better at it than I am, and that's okay.